My next guest is Jessica Johnson. She is an author, speaker, secondary school principal, and a district assessment coordinator in Wisconsin. In 2014, she earned the Wisconsin Elementary Principal of the Year Award. She is also the co-author of The Coach Approach and Balance Like a Pirate. In addition, she co-moderates the hashtag at Principal PLN. She taught and worked as an instructional coach and assistant principal in Arizona, earned her master's degree at Arizona State University, and has been in education for 18 years. She is currently starting her 13th year as a principal, and she is working as an adjunct professor in the Educational Leadership Department at Viterbo University as well. She has launched a hashtag Balanced Lap Challenge on Twitter this summer. Thanks for being on the podcast, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the topics that you share on here.
So we talked a lot in the pre-chat about how you were burned out as an educator and kind of how you got out of the trenches that way. And you talk a lot about that in your book. So please tell me about the story of kind of what turned around in your life.
Okay, I hope you have some time. So, well, hello, my name is Jessica and I am a workaholic. I just completed my 12th year as principal in the district that I'm in, and I love it so much. I've had the pleasure of knowing students in our district since they were 4 years old because we're a very small district. We're all in the same building, so I get to watch them grow. So I love my job tremendously most of the time. I've always been passionate about being an educator and the incredible impact that we can have in our students' lives, because I would not be where I am today if it were not for some of the educators who helped me along the way. So I love what I can do and the difference that I can help make a difference in the lives of children. However, over my years, I have worked so hard in the positional and professional areas of my life at the sacrifice of my family, my passions, and my own personal health. For years, I neglected basic self-care needs, like, the obvious ones like exercise and healthy eating, and then preventative care, like just, the basic yearly doctor or dental exams. And I would ignore mild symptoms until they became really big symptoms. And it was my husband dragging me to the ER, or instead of skipping all the dental visits, I ended up with a root canal, just stupid things that were not necessary. Over the years, I experienced several medical issues that my doctors would tell me it's due to stress and overworking myself, and I wouldn't listen. I would keep ending up back for some of the same stupid things. Like some examples include kidney stones because I drank so much Dr. Pepper to fuel me through my days. Being a principal that wanted to filter everything and be the source of positivity, I would hide any of my stress by clenching my jaw while still smiling. And I developed TMJ issues so bad that one time I was in a difficult meeting and my jaw locked up, and I actually lost hearing temporarily in my right ear until I went through physical therapy to be able to open my jaw and eat again. And at one point I was even given the medical diagnosis of a condition that's typically only found in 60-year-old overweight men who smoke. Now, I know most people listen to this podcast. I'm 5'3" and petite. So the other factor there is that I don't smoke. So, there were many wake-up calls, and it took many wake-up calls for me to finally, get to some sense. And so I was at a point several years ago in my principalship where I realized that I wasn't doing well with work and life. I wasn't balancing them. My health wasn't awesome. I was always crabby and tired at home. So my family honestly didn't even enjoy me and just wanted me to go back to work. My husband was more like a roommate because I was really married to my job, not him. And I didn't think I could do this for much longer. I didn't know very many principals who had done this for a long time. And a position came my way that piqued my interest that was outside of the school system, although it still was a job working with educators. And so I applied for it, and I thought this was going to be it for me. And when I interviewed with the team, I fell in love with what the job was, and I started to fantasize about all the things that I would be able to do with my life if I got that job. More time with my family. I could work out each day. I could finally write the book that I'd been wanting to write. And I was so disappointed when I got that job. I was like heartbroken. But as I reflected on it, I really wasn't disappointed about not getting the job because I do love my job. I realized that I was disappointed about not getting that different lifestyle that I was fantasizing about. And that's when I realized that we as educators should not have to give up our lives for
Mhm.
this work. It shouldn't have to be this way where we give up everything to live out our passion for work. We shouldn't give up everything else. So that was my point for me when I realized it's time for me to start making changes for my lifestyle, because nobody's going to give me more time. Nobody, my superintendent isn't going to say, oh, you don't have to do these things anymore. I had to be the person to put some boundaries and put some things in place in my life so that I could be a better human being outside of my job, be a better wife, be a better mother, be a better Jessica, do
Mhm.
right by myself. That way I could lead better for all of the people in my life. um, on my journey, I read like every self-help book I could find. I still read every self-help book I could find. I'm just an addict to them. But I would read books about balance and health and business and productivity and workflow. And I would get little tips from each, but I couldn't find a book that was like the book. So as I was reading them, I kept, keeping notes, and I was writing my own book that the working title was called Get a Life, Jessica,
Mhm.
because that was my self-talk, Get a Life. And then somewhere around that time, I've been connected on Twitter for many years. Thank goodness. I couldn't survive this position without having a professional learning network. But along this point in time, I got connected with Sarah Johnson, who is another administrator in Wisconsin, and Jessica Cabine, who is a principal in Minnesota. And we got connected for professional learning, but then we got even further connected personally by talking on the Voxer app, and started talking about running and our health, and had other principals that got in on that as well. And we spent more of our time talking about personal and health and fitness than we did professional, and helping support each other to get a life, to put ourselves first. And so it was through that I then got connected with the two of them of, hey, why don't we write this together, because everybody has different ideas and different tips to contribute. So that's where Balance Like a Pirate, going beyond work-life balance to ignite passion and thrive as an educator, came to be.
Wow, you have a lot of information to share about kind of going through that, um, just that downtime of you just not taking care of yourself. And it's really eye opening that you went to the doctor and you found out these things that nobody would have really, thought that you could have gotten, like that jaw issue, right? And that people are working themselves silly at a young age. And there's so many educators out there that don't get a health checkup, right? And that
Mhm.
they're thinking, they're devoting their entire lives to their job, right? And luckily, nothing really bad happened to you, but just you had to kind of realize that, hey, you couldn't be married to your job, right? You could still be an effective principal and make a difference in children's lives, but take care of
Mhm.
yourself. So,
Yeah.
kind of what led you to want to collaborate? You kind of talked about how you were talking with Jessica and Sarah about running. What did you all have in common with running? Because I'm also a runner. And then kind of where did that evolve into each of you writing parts of the book, and kind of who wrote what part, and how did that mesh together?
Yeah. So there's one of my favorite quotes is by Toni Morrison. If there's a book you want to read that hasn't been written, then write it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have co-authored, this is my third book now that I've co-authored. And so I'd previously had that experience of working with other educators, across the country, writing all via Google Docs, not ever actually in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been doing some of my own writing on my own. And then we were just having these conversations, and it just seemed natural of, at one point I shared, well, I have this idea for this book. I've been working on it. Would you be interested? And they both were like, yes, let's do it. We did have the common running theme, common, principalship, obviously. Really funny connection is that, so the Sarah Johnson, we're not related. We just happen to be Johnsons.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, both Sarah and I are originally from Minnesota. Jessica is originally from Wisconsin, and now we're flipped, where the
Yeah.
Johnsons are in Wisconsin and Jessica Cabine is in Minnesota. And we've been, gosh, is it 5 or 6 years now that we've been connected together, and we've just become close friends, and are in each other's lives. And I couldn't do it without them. But we've more than just the book, having the hashtag Balance Lap, for Balance Like a Pirate. I get so much out of it, not just sharing tips from our book or sharing quotes and things. We have that summer challenge going on right now, and we're posting something each week. You made it through the school year. What are you doing now to fill your own cup? Or what are you doing now to learn professionally? I'm getting so many great ideas from other people that they share, that I enjoy the educators that are, taking time to put themselves first and share to contribute to others as well to gain new ideas.
Mm-hmm. And just like in a family where they say, if mom's not happy, nobody's happy. That's kind of, you could transfer that to school, right? If the principal isn't happy, the school isn't going to thrive.
Yeah. The principal's attitude is huge. I mean, whatever we are putting off is what people are going to pick up on. So we have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves to be the best for them.
Mm-hmm. And how did your community notice? Did they gradually notice over time, or did staff members point out, well, you seem like you're a lot less stressed? Did anybody pick up on that when you made that shift?
I don't know that they did. I've always had the comments from people of like, I don't know how you do it all, and you're always smiling, and that is my thing. I hide it.
Mm-hmm.
What did change for me is becoming transparent and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I didn't like open up and become vulnerable with my staff until that book was coming out. And then I let them know, when I shared my story. And I remember when I was, the same story I shared with you, when I talked about, a different position, people were like, oh, I had no idea you were thinking of leaving. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe if you weren't here. And I would have to credit that like vulnerability and transparency has totally come from Brene Brown and like eating up everything that she has. And I think that has helped my staff better to be vulnerable with them and allow them to be vulnerable. And, we can be here for each other, and we need to support each other. And, when we go and present on this, which it's been a while since nobody's going anywhere, I will tell you, when we talk about this and we get vulnerable, and there's an activity where we do called Stand Up for Your Colleague.
Mm-hmm.
And we give everybody a sheet of paper, and there's a list of like 14 statements and to check either yes or no. Things like, I just don't see how it's possible to last long term in my position, or my family is struggling because I work so much. There's no space for me, and most days I give it all to my staff. I use unhealthy methods to cope, like alcohol or other methods.
Mm-hmm.
They complete these anonymously. We pass them around multiple times so nobody knows where anybody's is. And then we open it up and we read through each one and stand up if it's a yes. And so you're standing up for your colleague. And it's amazing. It's sad. It's eye-opening to see how many people are standing. But that activity right there, we always hear from people like, I had no idea. I thought I was the only one. So there's a lot of things that a lot of educators are struggling with, but they're afraid to open up and say, this is what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So for people to know, you're not alone.
Yeah, because in a principal job, in a job where you have you have the control, you're looked at as the expert, you're looked at as somebody in charge. It's very hard. You're isolated. You can't really reach out that often. So finding that PLN, finding people who not necessarily live in the same area as you is a great resource when you're getting connected and seeing that people are going through the same thing as you. And hopefully more and more school leaders are finding that out in the past couple of years and past couple of months.
Yeah. We're really passionate that it needs to come from top down, like not just principals, but also superintendents to understand, the stress level and where everybody is at.
Mm-hmm. And have you helped any colleagues in your area that maybe you've spoken to and that they feel like they're just not sure what to do because they're so overwhelmed? Have you helped change anybody in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get specific. There's a lot of individuals in Wisconsin, but also, many that will reach out on Voxer to have that like actual conversation separate from Twitter. It is easier to reach out to somebody who is further away than in your own little building. But I would say I've also had some of those connections with teachers as well who, feel like they can be vulnerable and say, this is what I'm sharing, or this is what I'm struggling with right now. Like I've got this on my plate and this on my plate. And I will say sometimes, many, many years ago when I was driven to like, we're going to improve our test scores and your lesson plans need to be in by this day. And um, many more of my conversations are, how are you doing? What can I do to support you? What do you need right now? And having that grace for teachers, like, yes, I may have seen a lesson totally tank, but she just found out her mom has cancer. She's going through a divorce and this and that. And how can I help support this teacher versus, how else I could be operating as a principal with that teacher. We need to have grace for people.
And your teachers feel a lot more like they're able to share those things with you as opposed to before, right? They don't feel like.
Yeah. Well, I am in a new position technically. Like I just finished my first year at the secondary level. I would say it was different in, previous building where I had been with them for so many years. But I do feel like, I've had several of those conversations with people that I really had just been getting to know. We had a short period of time together before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then having a principal like you is also very important in this time where, we're not sure exactly what our districts are planning. And, if there are teachers that end up going on sabbatical once the school year started because they realize that they'd rather, not teach this year, being able to understand those situations. It's hard, when it comes to staffing, but it's especially important right now with the uncertainty with COVID.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it has been hard. Like there are days where I'm like, do I really want to do this job? Like it's so hard right now. But one of the things that I do for myself when I get into those places is I always like have to step back and think, okay, what advice would I be giving so-and-so if she were saying this to me? Because you just get so close and so deep to the situation that you're in. You have to take a step back and think, what would I tell them? And I need to take my own darn advice, which sometimes we are terrible at taking our own advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a really, really hard time for teachers and principals right now. This is so hard. We've never been here. We don't know what's going to come. Every day, if you turn on the news, which just don't turn on the news, there's my tip right there. Don't turn on the news. It's awful. I mean, I will admit this weekend, I'm not normally a sleep in kind of person. I stayed in bed for 14 hours and it was really because I just don't want to wake up and think about what's going on right now. Like I'm just mentally and emotionally drained with everything we're having to figure out.
Yeah. Have you been able to take any time for yourself and your family this summer?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm trying really hard to not take any of the work home, but last week it was a rough week. And, after that 14 hours, then finally, when I pulled myself out of bed and told myself what I would have told, a teacher, feeling that way, got on my elliptical, did my self-care, and then I felt much better and then enjoyed my family.
Yeah. And as we all know, this too shall pass.
When?
Yeah, well, I feel like the finish line, I have the ready metaphor, the finish line keeps getting moved.
Oh gosh. Yeah. It gets moved and then it's lit on fire and then you're walking on glass trying to get to it uphill while there's murder hornets flying at you or who knows. Oh my gosh. But you have to find things to laugh at, like, oh yeah, we're at level 7 of Jumanji in July. Yay. What's next?
Yes, but I mean, despite all the difficulties we've dealt with, the teachers did get through the enormous shift in going to remote learning, and we've had more time to plan for whatever we're going to do in the fall. And I think we'll get some great stories out of educators who are going above and beyond, and we'll be able to look back on this as a learning experience.
Yeah, and we have to be flexible because it's constantly changing. And I think back to, I don't know how it is in your state, but in Wisconsin, you had to have licensing to be a virtual teacher. Mm-hmm. And then like overnight, oh, we're all virtual teachers. Let's go.
Yeah.
But that's what educators do. They bend over and do what's needed and learn what they need to learn differently and do incredible things for kids no matter what's going on.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing to keep in mind is, the teachers have a heart for the students and they're putting the students' needs first. And, hopefully you as a principal can remind them, to take that time for themselves as well, and that they won't be planning too much more than they otherwise would have, depending on district's decision. So
Yeah.
out of all the things we talked about today, what's one thing you would like listeners to remember especially?
I would say just to remember that self-care is not selfish, because being healthy and taking care of yourself puts you in a place to be better able to serve your students, better able to serve your family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point to remember as we go into the next school year, because you're not only serving your students, you do have most teachers have families or loved ones around them, and there's going to be somebody in that person's life who picks up on that they're stressed out, because when they're stressed out, they take it out on those people that they're closest to. So
Yeah.
So where can people find you online or follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, so on Twitter, I am Principal J. My email address is principaljohnsonj@gmail.com. If you're a Voxer person, I'm also Principal J there.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for being on the Out of the Trenches podcast.
Thank you so much. I love listening to you.